Alright, today we're going to do a comparison between two Dinos, the first being a 246 GTS, and then the second being a 308 GT4. We'll do a quick walk around of the cars while we talk about them, but right now let's do a large walk around so you can get to see all angles of the car before we start getting up close. And I'll give some commentary on it. This is a 246 GTS. They made about 1,378 of these. It's a Pininfarina bodied car. In addition, they made GTSs and GTBs. The GTSs have the removable targa roof, which is what this is. It is not the original paint on the car. This is the only car that we own that does not have the original paint, but it was repainted back in the late 70s. The 308 GT4 has boxer trim. This car is completely original. Sat in a museum for 30 years up in Canada until we acquired it 6 years ago. It has different wheels on it. We do have the original, which would be very similar to what the 246s had on them, but I like the star wheels, so that's what I decided to put on. Seeing that we have the originals, and if we ever want to show the car or take it back to quote-unquote original, we can do that. Alright, we'll start with the 246 and just showing. As you can see, this car has a Dino badge. They are Ferraris, but they were badged as Dino as a tribute to Enzo Ferrari's son. This car has a 2.4 liter 6-cylinder engine, which is transversely mounted in the car. We'll go to the interior before we get to that. So it has the bucket style seats, has the mouse hair dash, and a 5-speed gated transmission. For the 2.4 liter 6-cylinder, like I said, it's transversely mounted. It is a timing chain car, and this would quote-unquote be the last of the chain mid-engine cars. As you'll see when we get to the 308, it goes to a timing belt. It's carbureted, and it's a very cool sounding car. These had 4 Webers, correct? Yeah. There's also additionally a trunk. Now this trunk, as you can see, is much longer than when we showed the GT4s. The reason being is, 1, there's not rear seats, and 2, the engine's a little bit smaller, with it being 0.6 liters smaller. Alright, moving on to the GT4. So the interior is quite a bit different. You don't have the bucket seats, the huge difference in the dash. It does still have a 5-speed gearbox, but you have the rear seats, which are kind of used as partial selves, and you're able to just kind of finish off the rear section. Some cars actually didn't have the rear seats in them and had a partial shelf. Now this has a 3-liter 8-cylinder timing belt car. Again, has 4 Webers, but is a bit larger of an engine, and it is the first of the timing belt cars. So every 5 years, 15,000 miles, you have to do the belts on these, unfortunately. They sound completely different. You know, one has 8 cylinders, one has 6 cylinders, and just the way that they drive, which we'll get into, is completely different. The one really neat thing, and we'll get to this, is how you sit in this car. You sit very far forward, and it makes for a very cool driving experience. Another thing that I forgot to mention is this car is the only factory-bodied Bertone car that they made, which, as you can see here, down in the boxer trim. Bertone did body Ferraris, but the factory only produced the GT4s that were, produced by the factory, versus the Pininfarina body car, which many Ferraris were Pininfarina bodied. Alright, we'll go take them for a ride. One really cool thing with this is you can hear it click into gear. You don't hear that in the 308 era cars, which is really neat. One bad thing with the way you sit in this is for people that are over probably 5'5", give or take. The headrest is actually very uncomfortable. It hits you in the neck right about here, which is not great. The way you sit in all of the old Ferraris, everything's kind of far away from you. The steering wheels are at a tilt, which is the way that the Italian cars are. But here in America, it'd be nice if the steering wheel was back quite a bit further and not as tilted. Other nice thing with this car is it's a very tiny diameter steering wheel, which fits your hands very nicely. And as every Ferrari, has the air horn. The pedals are nicely spaced apart, which makes for gear changes pretty easy. Clutch release is a little bit higher in this car, but that's not a Dino specific thing, that's just this clutch. The way the dash is, this is what they call mouse hair. Very difficult to come by. We actually have a roll of it, thankfully, but makes for a very unique look and texture. And as I had mentioned, with this being a GTS car, the roof does come out. We almost never have it out, but and it's really cool the way you see over here the wheel arches. Gives that like Porsche 917 kind of look. The other thing is, I'm not going to remove it, but the sun visors do come down and they have a suction cup that sticks to the window, so that's a unique feature on these cars as well. This is the 308 GT4. Pretty tight road, so I'm gonna be pausing. As you can hear, the sound's completely different. It's a very wonderful driving car. This is actually one of my favorite cars to drive. It's very comfortable for people of all heights, weights. Again, being 5'11" and a little wider than your typical sports car driver. It's very comfortable for me and my father. The way the dash is pretty cool. It's that, you know, fighter jet kind of look that they had back then. Additionally, instead of having the wheel arches that you can see, as I had mentioned in the 246, it being like a fighter jet, this is just completely flat, very slippery. This is not the original steering wheel. We put this one on, which it's a little less comfy for me because I like a thinner steering wheel, but it is what it is. really nice in these cars. Makes heel toe very easy. But the way you sit in this is really what makes it. You sit so far forward. There's a lot of design input from the Formula One drivers back in the early 70s as to why this car was designed the way that it is, why it has the wheelbase it is, and where the engine sits, which makes for a very cool driving experience. As you can see as well, the creature comforts in here are a little bit more than what's in the 246, but that's just a difference in style and design, again, with it being a Bertone bodied car. And right now it's fall here in Pennsylvania, so we got the heat blasting, but this car is really perfect for all year round. We drive it throughout summer, spring, fall, and if the roads stay nice and aren't too salted through the winter. And again, last thing is, this does have the air horn just like all of the old Ferraris did. Thanks for watching the comparison on the two cars. Hope you enjoyed it.